Welcome to the Sparky Coach podcast. This platform was built by Sparkies for Sparkies. We simply exist to make business owners more profitable, or businesses more profitable and more predictable. So we want to work with people that work hard because we love working hard too, that work smart because you got to be on top of the business, people that are kind because no one likes a dickhead. Am I right? People who want results because that's what we're here for, right? And people who want to be part of a like-minded community. So if you're interested in hearing more about the platform, please reach out and enjoy the podcast. Part 2 of our unpredicted series, send variations or die trying. It's unscripted, it's unpredictable, it's unrelatable, it's undeniable, it's unsomething.
It's unfiltered.
Unfiltered discussion. Now, question from a member, one of my good friends, and won't name names. We don't like naming names here. We're like Voldemort. We keep it pretty low key. He who shan't be named or she who shan't be named had this job, 15 grand job, went good. So how do we know it went good? We measured it. It's not emotional. We measured it. Oh, he measured it, I should say. And
measured it.
Someone measured it. Yeah. But it's so important to measure, you have to know how things are going in your business, full stop. If you're too busy to check to see if you're making money or not on every job, you're just too busy. And this is what sort of grinds my gears about the coaching industry in a nutshell. The trade business coaching is there's lots of noise out there. And I think you just got to dial it into like what's actually non-negotiable. You know, you can have the sickest pathway for your job notes. Your job notes can go from your phone to the next phone, airdrop to Jotform, Jotform into Simpro, Simpro into ServiceMate, ServiceMate into Service Titan back to the moon, across the stars, and ping, your wife gets a text message, bang, automation, baby, but you lost money on the job. So it's like, what? Doesn't matter. Yes, I'm not discounting automation. I'm saying just don't put the chicken before the egg. You have to know if you're profitable or not and what works profitable or not. So anyway, they measured the job, went good, 15 grand job, 5 grand profit, right? There's nothing wrong with making money. I just want to say that. There's nothing wrong with making money. There's nothing wrong with making money, right? We understand that. And if you can be fair and reasonable, ethical over 10 years, you keep your product consistent and your product remains good, you'll do some good things. That's just the reality of life, right? So on that, he was like part of that. They made money on the quote. Obviously, what happens with a quote? Normally, 15 grand quote, there's an element of variations. Just like things change, people change. A lot of time, plans change, and you know when you're on site, you have to make fast decisions, or someone has to make fast decisions, or the plumber's got a heated toilet seat, or a heat trace, or something sexy. And is a heated toilet seat sexy or weird?
I think it's weird.
Just like sitting on a warm toilet seat for me is someone's been here before. That's what my body's going into like fight or flight. Who's been sitting on this? Yeah, I mean, just picture yourself right now sitting on a warm public toilet seat. How are you going to feel about that? Are you going to feel good about that?
So many.
And it's going to splash and hit your leg. That's going to be some bad time.
It's a tough day when you're sitting on a public toilet seat, eh?
It's a tough day when you're on a Bowlo. Actually, the funny story, I was a second-year apprentice digging a hole, and I was a bit sick and went to work, fully pooed my pants. Like, took my undies off, put them in the portaloo, got back on the shovel.
Get binned it.
No, just in the portaloo. Just flushed. Just crazy.
Straight down.
Yeah, it happened.
Okay.
Yeah.
Moving on.
I think one of the boys asked me the other day, like one of my little boys, they're like, oh, I pooed my pants, and I was like, we've all been there. This happened to me last week. Anyway, we digress. Talk about variations. So made good money on the job, and then had a variation sort of, you know, there's 10 variations, right? And it's really, really cool client, you know, so well spoken about, well documented. And he was like, I don't really need to send these. We've already made great money on the job. If I do, it's not even the icing on the cake. It's like what do you like on top of icing? Sprinkles, sauce,
chocolate fudge.
cream caramel, fudge, cherries, strawberries,
Anything.
whipped cream,
Anything
whatever. I don't
extra.
care what you want, all right? Or whatever your thing is. It could be caramello koalas, just like plonked on. I don't care, whatever. Like this is the caramello koala on top. Like it's not needed, but it's a nice to have, right? So he went back to the client and said, "Hey, we've made heaps of money on this job." No, he didn't say that. He said,
From his yacht in Greece.
yeah. He said, "CC, I'm in Monaco. There's no tax over here." So he said, "Hey, I've got 10 variations. We're billing you for 6 of them." And I thought it's such an interesting discussion because there's so many factors included in here. The first and foremost one is measuring, and we understand. The second one, I'm not going to say second, there's like one of them is also how new is the client? Like if they're a brand new client and you can be cool, like, and not just brand new, but existing. If you can be cool and do the right thing by clients, you'll do some damage in 10 years, like damage in a good way. I'm talking like as Vin Diesel doing damage is a healthy, good way, driving some cars and ripping from third to fourth around some giant bend, right? So you're doing I'm not a car guy, but I'm sure third to fourth around a giant bend is probably not a good thing. It's probably bad. Anyway, whatever. Anyway, so you know what I'm saying. But so how long's a client been around for? Because I think sometimes it's so easy to be really kind and nice to new clients and to not extend that same luxury to existing clients. And as much as you got to find clients, you got to retain clients. But the moral of the story is that the client in general called them and was like, "We love what you've done here. You've got our next job." Basically, they've got their work on lock. And I think as much as we have that philosophy, send variations or die trying, it's also important to understand when not to send variations or die trying. So one of the coolest things you can do with variations, in my opinion, is be incredibly organized. And so you're walking through the job, hey, that's that, that's going to be this, that's going to be this, that's going to be this. This is on the price book. That's a line to a sump pump down here. That'll be on cost plus. I've got no idea what's in that ground. So you just but awareness is key for both parties to be aware. It's so cool. And I used to love this. And he asked me to sort of talk about this. And he was like, "What did you used to do?" Obviously, obviously there's a line. And I think you've got to first and foremost put ego and insecurity aside. Like if you're too insecure to talk about it, that's an issue you have to confront. If you're too egotistical to discount something, then that's a line you've got to cross as well. So you've got to sort of reference where you are on that. Lots of people will operate like out of one rather than the other or whatever. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Like I'm just saying that's your thing. What's your thing? We used to walk through new builds or walk through jobs, whatever. I think it's so cool to be like, "Hey, here's a 20 varies. I've charged for 18. Hey, here's 20. I've charged for 17. I want to talk about this too. The extra stuff you do, that's, if you're listening, like I'm inverted commas, like Dr. Evil with his laser, there's the variations you do. Like I'm moving it down like 2 foot. I've got to relocate that PowerPoint, or if someone's chopped through something, I'm going to fix it. If you bill full freight for everything, for every time you get your pouch out or pull a hammer out, you're going to come unstuck at some point. That's the wrong attitude to have. But I think it's incredibly important to list out all the things you haven't charged for. That's important. Someone might never see that, but I would encourage everyone to be like, imagine saying to the client, "Hey, here's your 20 variations, but hey, we hit rock on that and we haven't charged you." Or, "Hey, we had to move this and this and this, we haven't charged you. Hey, we've done this, this and this, and we haven't charged you." Like stuff like that. If you're already doing something, you should write it out so you can, and you should let someone know. Because so often in business, someone's like, "Oh, I'm not paying those." And you're like, "You know what I've done for you? Like, you know what I've done for you?" And it's like, but they didn't know what you've done for them. So I think awareness is key. Knowledge around what numbers is good is key. Having a long-term relationship in mind is key. Now that's twofold, right? Long-term relationship is like, yeah, do you not charge that because you want a long-term relationship? And long-term relationship also comes into, if I don't charge for that, I set the precedent that things don't get charged for into the future. So I think the ball has to be in your court. There's no right or wrong, but there is what you would like someone to do to you to be considered. But I think like it's classic age-old was a Bible verse, but whoever said it is irrelevant. But if you treat people how you would want your mum to be treated, your dad to be treated, you to be treated, your kids to be treated, that's an incredible way to do business. But yeah, I think there's no right or wrong. I'm not landing anywhere. I'm just saying, like, what do you think? What do you guys do?
Yeah, I think, well, first and foremost, I think it is about having some kind of, like, let's just say we're in the project space sort of area, is that there's some kind of structure to the way you go about it. Like, and I think this is where it's really important, is like engage the client in this. So it's not just a, point and shoot sort of thing. It's like, hey, let's go do a walkthrough. Let's see where it's at. So, and I think it's, we prefer to do it before the job starts. So like I'm talking a week or so prior to our, scheduled date to commence on site. Gives the opportunity to build a relationship, because obviously, generally speaking, if let's just say you're working for a builder, they're probably working for the client. So it gives you a chance to build a relationship in a three-way, and then also give you a chance to educate or just let them be heard. Hey, and it could be like we prep them by just giving them some information, like, hey, have you considered these things? And it's not about like, hey, we want to add as many things as possible to it all. It's about giving the client the options and the consideration around it all. Because you got to remember, most people probably only work in this space a few times in their lifetime. So they're actually not aware of what happens. They might get some questions associated with it. And I think ultimately this is the big thing. It's not my decision to make for them. It's my responsibility and role to, educate them on them and let them know what costs are involved or how it works and that sort of stuff. But it's not my decision if whether they want to go ahead with it or not. And just like it's not my decision whether they put that particular type of fitting or that one. So it's like purely professional. Like it's just, hey, I think the other thing that what it does is it allows you to have the conversation with them and explain things. So it could be like, oh, hey, if you do, they might have a question. A classic one could be enough power to a pool pump equipment area. So, so you've got some allowance for like a heater or something like that. So you're educating them. So it's like, because they'll have no idea about it. It's like, oh, hey, so like if you want to get it there in the future, the only way to do it is like run down the side of your house externally in conduit, go through, then you have to dig up this concrete path, blah, 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 because currently everything just runs through the slab at the moment. So having those conversations with them and they're like, oh, well, and so, hey, we can just put a future provision of a conduit only with a draw wire in it if you want. Or we can run the circuit and it's just capped off at either end. Or we can put the circuit in, it's got power and it's to an ice. So that's just an example of one thing that where you're communicating, educating them. And, recently we had a client with she's talking about some kind of wall lights that she wanted. And we were just explaining to her, it's like, well, you've got one shot here because it was sort of falling between it being an atrium area. So if you do them now, you get them. If you want them later, you never get them. And just explain to her, like literally show her.
Yes.
Literally show her like, hey, this is how the cable's got to get there. This is why. And like, and the builder was like, yes, we can't do that. And she's like, well, what if we get them and I don't like them after a while? It's like, well, so you just put them back in the wall and you can get it patched over and painted and we just mark where it is in the wall so that you've got that for future reference. Oh, sweet. So, you're educating them around it. So where I fall on it all is you really need to be on the front foot with it all and look at it as an education opportunity and ultimately making your job more straightforward. So, because I don't know, I reckon everyone is at this in some point. It's you do the whole rough in and then you go back and do a rough in again because they've now walked through the property, walked through the build, walked through the fit out, insert it here. And they're like, oh, I want this, this, and this. And then invariably we get worked up over it because it's like, how dare you, had your opportunity here, you're going to pull me off this job, it's a waste of time, blah, blah, where you could have been on the front foot with it all. And I think it goes back to what we've talked about a little bit today and previously too, is that it's what can I always do better? Like how can I be in control of the situation and narrative as much as possible? And then what this does is it gives you the opportunity to be like, oh, hey, we're not going to, these are the things that we've done, but if you want any of these moved, because invariably it's like, oh, hey, I suggest that if you're going to do this, maybe we look at deleting that or moving this, or hey, have you thought about that? And it's like, okay, cool. We can then have an opportunity to like give and take a little bit, or it's like, oh, hey, we already, we already roughed in all those lights on those walls in the 3 bedrooms sort of thing. We're just going to pull them out. Like, it is variation. We're not charging you for it all, but we're just doing A, B, and C as well. So that will be getting charged in that sense. So having an understanding of around the communication side of it all, and being comfortable around, and I think the key is allowing enough time for it. So putting the time into it, whose responsibility is it? And so if you're on the tools still and doing the job, it's hey, instead of finishing when everyone else finishes on site, it's I got to finish an hour early to get this information out, right? Or instead of finishing when everyone else does, we finish, but then I stay back for an hour to close out these bits and pieces. And I think it's incredible the amount of things, and I'm just going to broadly say things, that can get solved and sorted by just finding 30 minutes to 60 minutes each day on each job and finding out where it works. And a lot of time, like I talk with the guys who are in charge of my job, call them leading hands, call them whatever you want, insert it here, is that, if there's a team of 4 or 5 of them there on site doing it, it's like, well, hey, your responsibility is not to have 8 hours on the tools the whole day. Your responsibility is to ensure that the guys on site have a productive 8 hours and that you capture the information as well. So it's like you may need to set an alarm to finish 30 minutes before everyone else does, or an hour before, so you go around and have a chat to everyone. So finding out what works best for you to be able to get that information and communicate it across. Don't know if that answers your question, Crow. It was a little bit tangenty, I guess.
Essentially, it's a variations discussion. It's like you've got to handle it properly. And, if you're roughing in something before you walk through with a client, you're roughing into plans, the best efforts of those plans to be correct are thwarted. And I think you've got to share your intellectual property. Like, so many times the client might have like 3-way switching or 2-way switching. I'm like, are you actually really going? I don't have any 2-way switching in my house. I genuinely dislike 2-way switching. I just feel like most of the time, I remember when I first started out, I was like, oh, what if you come through the side door? Like, what if you come in the back door at this point and you got to walk across here? Can you imagine walking 4 meters to your light switch? And then the more you've actually lived in a house, and I think that's where you get older and you live in houses, you're like, oh, how am I using this switch? How am I using this room? On the way out, flick everything off and walk back up. Like, usually you want to use it relatively simple. So I think you're allowed to share that. So a lot of times people have ample data points, or maybe not ample data points, or ample free to air or Foxtel back in the day. I don't know what it's really doing now, but maybe you can be like, hey, have you considered hardwiring your TV? Hey, you've got this 4 data outlets here. Are you going to use that? Will you use MacBook Airs? Like, I think you're entitled to ask questions, and asking good questions that come from experience. And if your sole focus isn't I'm capturing variations, if your sole focus is let's get the right product for the client, how are they going to use the space? What's going to happen here? What lights do they want? What have they considered? What have they thought about? Do they want dimming? All this kind of stuff. Hey, do you really want this 2-way switch? Hey, that smoke detector is in the worst spot ever. Have you considered moving it? I know we talk about smoke detectors a bit differently. You're in Queensland where you've got 4 per room, 4 per square meter per living area, where New South Wales, you have one every, second full moon compared to you guys. But going off that, it's just like, can you make the process seamless? And at the variations discussion, hey, I've added this, I've taken off this. This is why it's incredibly important to price per point. Not all the time, it's not applicable all the time, but if you can price book or price per point to get to the original quote, it's very easy to add or subtract things as you add variations or subtract variations. But, the age-old synopsis is, what do you charge for and what don't you charge for? And I think you've got to back your gut on this one. I think you've got to, sometimes you're going to get to a job and you're going to get to the invoice or and variations invoice or whatever, or combine the two and be like, hey, here's your 20 things you've added, I've charged for 17. Sometimes you're gonna be like, hey, here's your 20, I've charged for 20, but I've also done dirt that I haven't billed for. Sometimes you're gonna be like, hey, here's your 20, I've charged for 20, and I'm also charging for this extra stuff. It genuinely depends on the client and the service you're providing for. You know, and I would encourage everyone to, like, just because you've got a client doesn't mean you're going to keep the client. So you're one additional charge away, you know, or wrong charge, I should say. You're one aggressive charge away. You're one aggressive burnout, like not burnout, lash out away. Now get this. If other people are invoicing for you, that person's one lash out away. That person's one wrong variations invoice away. So this is incredibly important. So anyone in charge of the money or the conversations around money needs to be top tier, right? So incredibly important. So it's like, do you charge or not charge? I guess it's the age-old question, right? To charge or not to charge. There's essentially no right or wrong answer, and I think you've got to gauge it and feel it.
Bit of an awareness.
If you're discounting something out of insecurity because you're too scared to communicate money, or if you're discounting something because you didn't have the conversation soon enough, or if you're discounting something out of like something that you can change and chop and get better, put yourself on the front foot. Yes, charge whatever you can charge for. Yes, give away something that you feel to give away. That's super cool. And but you know, at the end of the day, if you don't have to give it away, you don't have to give it away. But if you do give it away, you might just land yourself a long-term client forever. So yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree part of that. I'll never forget one client, he's a builder, and he said to us, he's like, I don't want to see it, but I know I need to be charged for it, so just make it work. And so it was for some particular items, I can't remember what it was. So he was happy to be charged for it, he just didn't want to see the line item of it. So I think this comes down to he had to then communicate that to the client, and it was like, well, they would just expect that was there. And you know, you could get into the conversation of, well, but it wasn't there. But his point was like, I know it's not there, but we don't need to tell them it wasn't there. So I think this is incredibly important where it comes down to the relationship and the communication around it too, is that sometimes a phone call is required first, of just like having a chat around, hey, these are what we've got here. Do you see, do any of these stand out to you as like a potential issue? Like, and be honest with them. It's like, hey, this is what we've come up with here. Is that fair and reasonable? And they might be like, totally happy with that. Or they'll be like, oh, hey, can you just put that one and put it in with that sort of thing? Because they're aware of how things work. So sometimes, and we say this a lot, don't discount the value of a phone call and how it can go a long way, because once it's in writing, it can get a bit passive aggressive. Even though they just might have received that email at the wrong time on the wrong day, and they've come back relatively blunt, and then it's like, oh, we've taken it. Whereas like they probably could have been resolved with a little bit of a phone call first to just heads them up, particularly if they're new, or particularly if you're not sure how they operate in that sense. But yeah, there's no right or wrong. I think you've got to operate with what you think is the right thing to do for your business and what you're trying to achieve here in the long term. And I think that's why it's incredibly important to identify and be on top of it, because if someone comes back to you with saying like, you've been incredibly aggressive here, that you can counteract that with, be like, well, I think I'm being fair and reasonable, because this is what we've sent through here, which was all requested, and these are all the things that we've done that we haven't charged for. I think when you can balance that out, a lot of people then look at it in a different light and are like, oh, that's probably fair and reasonable. But what's going to hold you in good stead long term?
Yeah, and also it's interesting, right? Like, just you're spending someone's money, and we had clients worth a lot of money, and it's like, I knew I didn't have to get anything in writing, and I knew that the guy said, like, you could just send the invoice in, Malaysian, and they would get paid. Like, it was really irrelevant what language the invoice is in. Just as long as you could read the dollar amount, they would pay it. There was that ongoing trust there, and but I knew as well, I was always above reproach. The service we were providing was awesome. I or someone was always available on the phone. We would rarely, if ever, let them down. So it's super interesting. But I think like flashing yourself to the heat of the moment, you're got a tradie and 2 apprentices, or you got an apprentice, and you turn up on site to the kitchen renovation, and it's all guns blazing, and you're walking through with a client, and there's like hammers, and there's a Zito hammer drills on top of a Zito hammer, like double Zito hammer drills, right? Like those. That'd be pretty cool to see, actually, wouldn't it? Double chipping at the same time. I don't know how effective it would be, but I'm sure it'd be sick. It'd be good to watch, but it'd be really interesting to see that, the Zito. But you're walking through there, and it's like, do you walking through with the client, they add 20 things, right? That's potentially let's say $2,000 to $3,000 of, let's say $3,000, right? Of like, it's $3,000 bill. So that's going to take you, after you walk around, it's going to be fresh in your head, fresh in their head. That's going to take you an hour to piece together. So that 1 hour you spend is going to save you $3,000 or make you $3,000. You can't earn that on site. No matter how good you are, maybe you'll earn that once a year at a certain job on site. You know what I mean? But rare, to be honest, pretty rare. So it's like, try and gauge up your opportunity cost, buyback cost, whatever you call it. It's like, if you spend 4 hours on that and made $3,000, that's still a pretty good return on investment at that point. So, but what we used to do, while it's incredibly fresh, right? So get this. So we would send, let's say I walk through with a client. Let's take this 2 ways. Walk through with a client, and I would basically piece it together. I'd put it in a body of an email to them. That body of the email would also be transported to, like, it'll also be on the actual invoice or quote, if it's applicable at that point. So it's communicated once, twice. Before I send that, I would call and be like, hey, great walkthrough this morning. I've subtracted it and added this. It's come to this. This is where we're at. I'll send it to you. It'll make sense. So you've got 3, 4 really in person, on phone. That one could be in person if they're still on site. And you got an email, and you got like a body of email and the attachment of email. So it's 4 ways to be like, hey, this is where it's all at. Then they have the choice to be like, yes, no, maybe. So many options. So many times I think as a business owners, we don't put the power, Captain Planet style, back in their hands, right? We take it and we run with it because we know best. And you know what? It's just like, you just got to wrangle it and put your best foot forward. And let's say you walk through with a client, get it back to them that afternoon. It doesn't really matter, but like, just make the call, put it in 3 different places, make sure it's above reproach, make sure it's easy to read. So, yeah. The best way to make sure it's easy to read is put it in front of your partner or one of your mates who's like doing something else, and just try and read it like a wife would read it, or a husband if you've flipped the script and the wife is the electrician. Try and read it like the non-technical person kind of thing. Incredibly important. So, there's no right or wrong. And yeah, we want to get like charged. We want to charge as much as we can, and that's super cool. Like, I fully get that. But sometimes you got to know when the line has been drawn and to do the right thing, and that might be to charge, not to charge. It's going to be individual, sort of per situation, I would say. And that's my wrap up. So good times.
I like it. I like it really.
10 variations or die trying, or don't send variations and die trying. Or maybe a better way to sum it up, make it incredibly clear. If you have done something for pro bono volunteer work, make it incredibly clear what you've done, incredibly clear in writing. Everyone's aware of it, and roll forward into maximum enlightenment and be blessed by the electrical gods, who no doubt are watching you right now in the most creepy way possible. Peace.
Gotcha.
That's a wrap on another podcast. Whatever you're doing, don't be too busy to stop and check if you're making money. And above all else, you know the rules. Be kind. See you soon.